Smoke choked the ruined outpost. Through the haze, a small figure emerged wrapped in torn field gear, face concealed. The young Marines laughed when they spotted the strange tattoo on her wrist, a symbol they didn't recognize. Seconds later, her rifle cracked. A target over a mile away dropped. When she lowered her hood, the entire SEAL unit fell silent. Commander Harris stepped back, whispering, "God." Phantom Lynx? The forward operating base sat like a scar on the desert floor. Red sand mixed with black smoke, creating a choking haze that burned the eyes and throat. Mortars had pounded the perimeter all morning, leaving craters that steamed in the 100-degree heat. Lieutenant Commander James Harris wiped sweat from his face as he watched the supply Humvee roll through the shattered gate. His SEAL team had been holding this position for 6 days. 6 days of constant harassment from enemy forces that seemed to know every weak point in their defense. "Sir, the attachment's here," Petty Officer Rodriguez called out. Harris turned. A figure climbed out of the Humvee's passenger seat, slight build, maybe 5'6", wearing oversized combat fatigues that had seen better days. A dark hood obscured the face completely. The person moved with deliberate slowness, pulling out a rifle case that looked older than half the men on the base. "That's our sniper support?" Corporal Jensen laughed, elbowing the Marine next to him. "Command's really scraping the barrel." The hooded figure ignored the comment. Silent footsteps carried them toward the designated position, a collapsed watchtower that offered elevation but precious little cover. Harris watched as they set down the case with surprising gentleness, almost reverence. "Welcome to FOB Darwin," Harris said, approaching. "I'm Commander Harris, 2nd Battalion, decorated in Kandahar and Mosul." The voice was quiet, feminine, with an accent he couldn't quite place. "Eastern European, maybe." "I read the brief. And you are?" "Pause. Lynx. That's not a name, it's all you need." She, Harris was certain now, knelt beside her rifle case, fingers working the latches. Her sleeves rolled up slightly, revealing pale skin marked with a small tattoo. A stylized lynx in black ink, barely an inch across. Jensen snorted. "Nice ink. Get that at a truck stop?" Lynx didn't respond. She lifted the rifle from its case, a custom bolt-action piece that looked hand-assembled. The stock was worn smooth from years of use. As she checked the chamber, her hands trembled slightly. Harris frowned. "You okay?" "Fine." The word came out sharp. She began assembling her scope, fingers moving with practiced precision despite the tremor. "Sir, we've got movement," Rodriguez called from the radio station. "Eastern Ridge, 2 clicks out. Looks like a scout patrol." "How many?" "4, maybe 5. Harris grabbed his binoculars. Through the heat shimmer, he could barely make out shapes moving along the ridgeline. Too far for accurate fire with standard rifles. He turned to Lynx. "Can you?" She was already in position. The rifle rested on a makeshift bipod constructed from rubble. Her breathing had slowed, become rhythmic. The tremor in her hands had vanished completely. Range 2,100 meters. Wind southwest at 12 knots, gusting 15. She spoke to herself, voice barely audible. Temperature 42 Celsius, humidity 17%. "There's no way she can make that shot," Jensen muttered. Lynx adjusted her scope. 1 millimeter, 2. Her finger found the trigger. The world seemed to hold its breath. The rifle cracked once, a sound like a whip snapping. Harris kept his binoculars trained on the ridge. 3 seconds, 4. Then one of the distant figures jerked and fell. Hoy Rodriguez started. Lynx cycled the bolt smoothly. The spent casing clinked on the concrete. She was already tracking the next target. Another shot, another fall. The remaining scouts scattered and disappeared into the rocks. Jensen stood with his mouth open. Harris lowered his binoculars slowly, studying the hooded figure who had just eliminated 2 targets at a distance most shooters would consider impossible. "Where did you train?" Harris asked quietly. Lynx was already breaking down her rifle. "Somewhere that doesn't exist anymore." That night, Harris sat in the communications bunker, scrolling through classified databases. The tattoo nagged at him, the shooting precision, the accent. "Still digging on our mystery sniper?" Staff Sergeant Chen asked, bringing coffee that tasted like battery acid. "Something about her." Harris shook his head. "That Lynx tattoo. I've seen it before." "Yeah? Where?" "That's what I'm trying to remember." Chen pulled up a chair. "The guys are calling her Ghost Girl. She hasn't said 10 words since she got here. Just sits up in that tower, watching." Harris typed in search parameters. "Female snipers, Eastern European Special Forces, Lynx symbols. The results were sparse. Most records were redacted or classified above his clearance level. Then he found something. A NATO intelligence brief from 2018 marked EYES only. He shouldn't have access to it, but someone had made a clerical error in the classification system. The document described a joint operation in eastern Ukraine. Counterinsurgency. A specialized unit had been deployed, designation unknown, even to NATO observers. But one member had been identified, a female sniper, call sign Phantom Lynx, who had eliminated 17 high-value targets in a single night operation. According to field reports, Phantom Lynx operated with unprecedented accuracy in urban environments, Harris read aloud. Multiple confirmed kills at ranges exceeding 1,800 meters in adverse conditions. Subject displayed tactical awareness beyond conventional training parameters. Sounds like a legend, Chen said. Says here she was KIA in Donetsk. October 2018. Harris scrolled down. No body recovered. Presumed dead after building collapse during artillery barrage, so it can't be our girl. No. But Harris's instincts were screaming otherwise. He clicked on an attached image, enhanced satellite footage of a rooftop position. In the corner, barely visible, a figure crouched behind a rifle. The image quality was poor, but there was something familiar about the posture. A note at the bottom of the file caught his eye. Subject's personal identifier, small lynx tattoo, left wrist. Unit tradition from an unconfirmed Eastern European Special Operations Group. Harris set down his coffee carefully. Chen, get me everything we have on casualties from Donetsk, October 2018. American advisors, Allied observers, everyone. Sir? Just do it. While Chen worked the computer, Harris walked outside. The night was cool, a relief after the scorching day. Stars filled the sky with cold light. He could see Lynx's silhouette in the ruined tower, motionless as a statue. He climbed the debris pile that served as stairs. Lynx didn't acknowledge his approach, but he knew she'd heard him, probably heard him from 50 yards away. You were at Donetsk, Harris said. Not a question. Silence stretched out. Finally, a lot of people were at Donetsk. Not a lot of people were declared Kia and buried with military honors. Harris moved closer. I was there, you know. October 18th. We were evacuating NATO observers when the shelling started. I helped pull bodies from the rubble. Lynx's shoulders tensed. There was a young woman, maybe 23, 24, blonde hair, covered in dust. She had a small tattoo on her left wrist. Harris paused. I carried her body to the transport myself. Watched them zip up the bag. Then you know she's dead, Lynx said flatly. The woman I carried was dead, but I don't think it was you. Does it matter? It matters to me. I wrote a letter to her family. Told them she died bravely, that she saved lives. Harris's voice roughened. If I lied to them, you didn't lie. Lynx finally turned. In the starlight, he could see the edge of her jaw beneath the hood, the curve of a scar. She did die. Just not the way you think, the person she was. She couldn't survive what happened there. So who are you now? Someone who pays her debts. Before Harris could respond, she'd turned back to her scope, ending the conversation as definitively as a door slamming shut. Dawn broke over the mountains with deceptive beauty. Harris's radio crackled at 0530 hours. Darwin Actual, this is Overwatch. We've got eyes on a convoy moving through the valley. 8 vehicles, heavily armed. Appears to be weapons transferred to hostile elements. Harris grabbed the handset. Overwatch, Darwin Actual. Can you confirm cargo? Negative visual confirmation, but signals intelligence suggests high-value ordnance. Possibly anti-aircraft systems. That changed everything. If those weapons reached their destination, the entire air corridor would be compromised. Supply runs would become suicide missions. Harris assembled his team in the command bunker. Maps covered the walls. He traced the convoy's route with his finger. They'll pass through the narrows here, he said, pointing to a section where the valley walls closed in. Best ambush point, but it's 1,500 meters from our nearest position. Too far for our marksman, Rodriguez said. What about the ghost girl? Jensen asked. She made that shot yesterday. Harris had been thinking the same thing. Lynx, he called toward the tower. She materialized in the doorway like she'd been waiting. I heard the briefing. Can you make the shot? From where? Harris showed her the map. This ridge, 1,200 meters, elevated position. But you'd need to account for valley winds. They're unpredictable. Lynx studied the terrain. Her finger traced possible firing lanes. Give me a spotter and clear line of sight. I'll need to position 2 hours before the convoy arrives. You're that confident? I'm that prepared. She looked up. But Commander, understand something. If I take this position, I'm committed. No extraction if things go wrong. We'll have overwatch. No, her voice was firm. You keep your people safe. I work alone. That's the deal. Harris wanted to argue, but something in her tone told him it would be pointless. Fine. You leave at 0600. The next 2 hours crawled by. Harris watched through long-range optics as Lynx made her way to the ridge. She moved like smoke visible one moment, vanishing the next. It took her 90 minutes to cover terrain that should have required 3 hours. At 0815, her voice came through the radio. In position, copy that. Convoy ETA 20 minutes. Harris waited. The valley was a painting in ochre and shadow, peaceful except for the knowledge of violence to come. Darwin actual. I've got visual on the convoy, Lynx reported. 8 vehicles confirmed. Lead vehicle appears to be command element. Second vehicle is the package-covered flatbed, likely carrying the ordnance. Can you disable the package? Negative. Too much risk of collateral, but I can take the command vehicle. Without leadership, they'll scatter. Proved. Take the shot when ready. Silence. Harris could picture her, calculating wind speed, temperature differentials, the Coriolis effect at this range, all the variables that separated amateurs from artists. The valley held its breath. Then the sound reached them distant, crisp, the crack of a high-velocity round. Harris swung his binoculars to the convoy. The lead vehicle's windshield had turned red. The truck swerved, rolled, and crashed into the valley wall in a cascade of sparks and dust. The other vehicle stopped. Confusion rippled through the ranks. Second vehicle crew is evacuating. Lynx's voice was calm. They're exposing the cargo. Confirming anti-aircraft systems. Can you disable them? Give me 30 seconds. Another shot. Then another. Harris watched as the convoy descended into chaos. Tires exploded. Engine blocks shattered. In less than 2 minutes, Lynx had turned a military operation into a junkyard. Darwin. Actual targets neutralized. Convoy is disabled. Recommend immediate airstrike on the cargo before they can recover. Harris was already calling it in, but part of his mind was elsewhere, marveling at what he'd just witnessed. This wasn't just skill. This was artistry written in gunpowder and geometry. Word spread fast in the close quarters of FOB Darwin. By nightfall, every soldier knew about the impossible shots, the mystery sniper who never missed. Harris found a group clustered around a laptop in the mess area. On the screen, grainy footage from a helmet camera, showing the convoy ambush from an oblique angle. Watch this part, Chen was saying. See how the command vehicle goes down? Then boom, boom, boom. She takes out 3 more targets in under 5 seconds. Different ranges, different angles. I heard she used to work for some Black Ops unit, another Marine said. The kind that doesn't officially exist. My buddy in intelligence says there are rumors. A female sniper in Eastern Europe, back during the Ukraine conflict. They called her Phantom Lynx because nobody ever saw her coming. Harris's gut tightened. That's just stories, Jensen scoffed. Phantom Lynx is urban legend stuff, like the White Death or Carlos Hathcock. Carlos Hathcock was real, dumbass. Yeah, but he was a Marine. This Phantom Lynx thing? It's like Bigfoot with a rifle. Chen pulled up something on his phone. Actually, there's documentation. Look at this NATO intelligence brief from 2018. Talks about a female sniper operating in Donetsk. 17 confirmed kills in one night. The brief describes her tactics. Extreme range shooting, urban concealment, 0 collateral damage. Says here she was killed in action. Rodriguez read over his shoulder. Or that's what they wanted people to think, Chen said. Maybe she went underground. Maybe she's here. That's insane, Jensen said. But he looked uncertain. Harris cleared his throat. The group scattered like startled birds, suddenly remembering they were gossiping in front of their commanding officer. Sir, we were just Chen started. I know what you were doing, and you're going to stop. Harris kept his voice level. Lynx is here to do a job. Her past isn't our business. Clear, sir. But after they dispersed, Harris pulled Chen aside. That NATO brief you mentioned. Send me the file. Sir, it's above my clearance. I know. Send it anyway. 10 minutes later, Harris was back in the communications bunker, reading through the document Chen had accidentally forwarded. The details matched what he remembered, but there was more. Operational summaries, after-action reports, psychological profiles. One section made him pause. Subject demonstrates exceptional capability but exhibits signs of severe emotional detachment. Field psychologist notes, subject appears to process targets as mathematical problems rather than human beings. Recommendation: monitor for potential PTSD manifestation. Risk assessment: moderate to high for psychological break if subject faces civilian casualties. There was a handwritten note in the margin, nearly illegible: she's not detached. She's protecting herself. The day she stops being cold is the day she breaks. Field Psych, Mage, Patterson. Harris closed the file. He thought about Lynx sitting alone in her tower, night after night. The way her hands trembled until she touched her rifle. The careful way she spoke, as if every word was rationed. He found her where he expected in the tower, invisible except for the slight movement of her hood, as she scanned the horizon. "The men are talking," he said without preamble. "Let them talk. They think you're Phantom Lynx." She didn't respond for a long moment. Then, "Phantom Lynx died in Donetsk. I was there. I saw it happen." "You saw what happened?" "I saw the person I used to be get buried under a building. When they pulled me out," her voice went distant. "Someone else opened her eyes, someone who couldn't afford to be that person anymore." Harris leaned against the rubble. "What changed?" "I learned that some targets aren't worth the bullet, and some causes aren't worth dying for." She adjusted her scope minutely. "But some people are worth protecting. That's why I'm here. To protect my team, to pay a debt." She turned slightly. "You saved someone in Donetsk, Commander. You carried her out of hell. You gave her a chance to become something better than a weapon." Harris's throat tightened. "That was you. That was Phantom Lynx. I'm just Lynx now, and I'm here to make sure you get home." The attack came 3 nights later, swift and coordinated. Harris jolted awake to the sound of mortars screaming overhead. The bunker shook as rounds impacted the perimeter. Dust rained from the ceiling. "All positions, Darwin actual." He shouted into the radio, "Report status." The responses came in fragmented bursts. "Eastern wall compromised. Northern gun position taking heavy fire. Casualties mounting." "Sir, they're hitting us from 3 sides." Rodriguez yelled over the chaos. "This is a full assault." Harris grabbed his rifle and body armor. "Where's our air support?" "Socked in. Storm system moved in from the northwest. No flight operations for at least 4 hours." 4 hours. They'd be overrun in 1. He reached the command post to find organized chaos. Marines scrambling to firing positions. Medics hauling wounded to the aid station. Tracer rounds cutting red lines through the darkness. Chain, Z-Trep, enemy force estimated 200 plus. They've got our range dialed in. We can't hold the perimeter. A massive explosion lit the night. The western wall collapsed in a shower of concrete and rebar. "They're breaching," someone screamed. Harris made the call. "Fall back to secondary positions. Controlled retreat. Keep your spacing." That's when he realized. "Where's Lynx?" "Still in her tower, sir. She won't respond to radio." "Damn it." Harris turned to Chen. "You have command. Get our people to cover." "Sir, you can't." But Harris was already moving, sprinting across the open ground toward the tower. Rounds kicked up dust around his feet. Something hot seared across his shoulder a graze. He kept running. The tower stairs were partially collapsed. He climbed the rubble, ignoring the pain in his shoulder. At the top, he found Lynx. She hadn't moved from her position. Her rifle tracked targets with mechanical precision. Empty brass casings littered the floor around her like copper rain. "I told you to fall back with the others," Harris shouted over the gunfire. "Can't." She fired. A distant figure fell. "They've got a squad moving on your southern flank. If I leave this position, they'll enfilade your retreat. We can't hold." "You don't need to hold. You need to survive." She fired again. "Get your people to the bunkers. I'll cover you." "Alone? That's suicide." "No." She cycled the bolt smoothly. "It's mathematics. 1 rifle, elevated position, clear field of fire. I can buy you 30 minutes. Lynx." She turned to face him. In the muzzle flashes, he caught a glimpse of her face beneath the hood. Younger than he'd expected, a jagged scar ran from temple to jaw. Her eyes were the coldest thing he'd ever seen and the saddest. "I've been here before, Commander. Different desert, different war. But I know how this ends." Her voice softened. "Please, let me do this. Let me save something." A mortar round struck the base of the tower. The entire structure shuddered. "You've got 28 minutes now," Lynx said, returning to her scope. Don't waste them. Harris wanted to argue, wanted to order her to retreat. But he was a combat officer, and he recognized the truth when he heard it. Her position could hold. Her skill could buy them time. "I'm coming back for you," he said. "I know." She fired. "That's why you're a good officer. Now go." Harris descended the tower in a controlled fall, hitting the ground hard. Around him, his team was executing the withdrawal disciplined, orderly, exactly as trained. Above, Lynx's rifle maintained its steady rhythm. Crack, crack, crack. Each shot a punctuation mark in the night's violence. She was buying them time with the only currency she had left: her life. Harris reached the bunker entrance and turned back. The tower stood against the firestorm, a solitary finger pointing at the sky. At its peak, a small figure held the line alone. "All personnel accounted for except Lynx," Chen reported. Harris grabbed the radio. "Lynx, we're secure. Get out of there now." Static. Then her voice, surprisingly calm. "Negative, Commander. They're sending a second wave. You need me here a little longer." The night exploded into a fresh hell. In the bunker, Harris coordinated the defense while monitoring Lynx's position. The radio crackled with her sparse updates: enemy movements, priority targets, ammunition status. "She's been up there for 45 minutes, Rodriguez said. "How much ammo did she bring?" "Not enough," Harris muttered. The eastern entrance shook as another mortar landed nearby. Dust filtered through the air. In the medical corner, wounded men groaned. The radio operator called out interception reports: enemy forces regrouping, preparing for another push. "Darwin Actual, this is Lynx." Her voice was strained now, breathless. "I've got visual on their command element. Western Ridge, 900 meters. If I can take them out, the attack will fall apart. Do you have a clear shot?" "Negative. Too much smoke. I need to relocate to a higher position." Harris checked his map. "There's nothing higher than your current position." "Yes, there is. The water tower. Eastern sector. That's completely exposed. And it's taking direct fire. It's also perfect elevation." A pause. "Commander, this is the play. You know it." "I know it." Harris closed his eyes. She was right. The water tower offered commanding views of the entire valley. A skilled sniper could dominate the battlefield from there, but reaching it meant crossing 200 meters of open ground under active bombardment. "I can't authorize that," he said. "Good thing I'm not asking for authorization." He heard movement through her mic. She was already packing up. "If I don't make it, my rifle goes to Jensen. He's got potential." "Lynx, wait. No time. They're massing for the next push." Her voice dropped. "Commander, James, I need to tell you something." It was the first time she'd used his first name. "Donetsk wasn't my first war. It wasn't even my worst." She spoke quickly, words tumbling out. "I started when I was 16. Some people are born for normal lives. Others," she trailed off. "I was good at killing. It was the only thing I was good at, so I kept doing it." "You don't have to." "Yes, I do. Because if I don't make it back, someone should know." She took a shaky breath. "When you pulled me from that rubble in Donetsk, you didn't just save my life, you saved me. The way you talked to me, even though I was covered in blood and dust, you treated me like a person. Not a weapon, not a tool, a person." Explosions punctuated her words. "I've spent 5 years trying to figure out how to be that person, the one you saw. And tonight, I finally understand." Her voice was steady now, certain. "Being a person means choosing what you fight for, not who tells you to fight." "Lynx, tell my story, James, not the Phantom Lynx story. Tell them about the scared girl who wanted to be something more than a killer. Tell them she tried. You'll tell them yourself when you get back." She laughed softly. "Always the optimist, that's why I liked you." The radio went silent. Through the bunker's observation slit, Harris saw a small figure sprint across the killing zone. Mortar rounds walked across the ground, chasing her shadow. She moved like smoke, like memory, like something that was already half ghost. She reached the water tower and began climbing. Tracer rounds searched for her in the darkness. The tower's metal skeleton rang like a bell as bullets struck. Then she was at the top, settling into position. Her rifle steadied. "Target acquired," she whispered. Taking the shot, Harris held his breath. The night held its breath. The rifle spoke once, a sound like the world cracking open. On the western ridge, something changed. The coordinated fire slackened. Confusion rippled through the enemy lines. "Command element neutralized," Lynx reported. "They're breaking." It was true. The attack was faltering, falling apart, but then Harris saw it. Enemy mortars adjusting their aim. All of them, converging on a single point. The water tower. Lynx, get out of there. They've targeted your position. I know. Already moving. But her voice was too calm, too resigned. The mortars fired in sequence. The water tower disappeared in a fireball. The explosion lit the valley like dawn. Harris bolted from the bunker before anyone could stop him. Chen grabbed his arm. Sir, you can't. Like hell I can't. He shook free and ran. The enemy assault had broken. Scattered forces were retreating, their command structure shattered. But Harris didn't care about tactical victory. He only cared about the burning skeleton of the water tower and the woman who'd been at its peak. Debris rained from the sky. Chunks of metal, concrete dust, smoke that burned his lungs. He reached the tower's base and looked up at twisted wreckage. Lynx. His voice was raw. Lynx, respond. Nothing. Rodriguez and Jensen caught up to him. Sir, it's not safe. Start searching. Now. They picked through the rubble. Each piece of metal might hide a body. Each shadow might be her. Harris's hands were bleeding. His shoulder wound had reopened. But he didn't stop. Commander. Chen's voice was tight. Over here. Harris stumbled to where Chen was crouched. A piece of fabric the torn edge of Lynx's hood. Dark with blood. No. Harris pushed past him, digging with raw hands. She made it out. She always makes it out. Sir. Jensen reached for him. That's an order. Keep searching. They searched for 30 minutes. 40. The sun began to rise, painting the valley in shades of red and gold. Finally, Harris sank to his knees in the dust. His hands were shaking from exhaustion, from blood loss, from the weight of knowledge settling in his chest. She was gone. Phantom Lynx was finally, truly gone. Get me a body bag, he said quietly. Sir, we haven't found. Get me a bag. I'm not leaving her here. His voice broke. I did that once. I'm not doing it again. They continued searching as the sun climbed higher. Medical teams had evacuated the wounded. Engineers were assessing the damage. Life was returning to normal, whatever normal meant after a night like that. Then Rodriguez called out. Sir, we've got something. He'd found a blood trail. Not much, just drops in the dust, leading away from the tower, away from the base. Into the rocks. Harris followed it like a lifeline. The trail led to a narrow crevice between two boulders. He squeezed through. On the other side, a small cave. And in the shadows, sitting with her back to stone, was Lynx. Her hood was gone. Blonde hair was matted with blood and dust. The left side of her face was a mass of bruises. Her left arm hung at an unnatural angle. But she was breathing. Her eyes opened when Harris approached. Pale blue, startling against the dirt and blood. Told you I'd relocate, she whispered. Harris dropped beside her, hands hovering, unsure where to touch. That wouldn't cause more damage. You're alive. Surprised? Honestly? Yes. He keyed his radio. Chen, I need medical to my position. Now. Roger that, sir. Lynx's good hand caught his wrist. James. Did they withdraw? Everyone's safe. The attack broke. You did it. Good. Her eyes started to close. That's good. Stay with me. Medics are coming. Not planning to leave yet. Still have debts to pay. She managed a smile. Besides, someone needs to teach Jensen how to shoot properly. The medics arrived within minutes. As they stabilized her for transport, Harris noticed something. Her left wrist, below the tactical glove, showed the edge of her tattoo, the small lynx. But there was something else. A scar, old and deliberate, that partially crossed the tattoo. Like she'd tried to remove it once. Tried to erase that part of herself. She caught him looking. Didn't work. She said softly. Scars don't erase the past. They just prove you survived it. 3 days later, in a field hospital 50 miles from FOB Darwin, Harris visited Lynx in recovery. She was sitting up, her left arm in a cast, bruises fading from purple to yellow. Her hair was clean now, revealing how young she actually was. Mid-20s at most. Commander. She nodded. Shouldn't you be at the base? Chen has it handled. Besides, I owed you a visit. He pulled up a chair. How are you feeling? Like I fell off a water tower. She smiled slightly. The doctors say I was lucky. Fractured radius, cracked ribs, concussion. Could have been worse, could have been dead. Yes, well, I'm good at not dying. Harris set a folder on her lap. Your discharge papers. Medical recommended you be rotated out. Honorable completion of contract. She looked at the papers without opening them. Where will I go? That's up to you. But he pulled out another envelope. This came through official channels. The Pentagon wants to offer you a consultant position, training special operations snipers, full military benefits, civilian status, decent pay. Why would they do that? Because word got out about what happened at Darwin, about what you did. Harris leaned forward. They know who you are, Lynx, or who you were. NATO intelligence confirmed it. You're Phantom Lynx, officially declared Kia in 2018, but very much alive. She was silent for a long moment. Will there be consequences? No. Your contract was legitimate. You weren't AWOL or anything like that. You just started over. He paused. They want to give you a chance to keep starting over, but legitimately this time, with support, training position. She tested the words. Teaching others to do what I do. What you did. Past tense. Harris's voice was firm. You don't have to be on the line anymore. You can pass on the knowledge without the risk. I don't know if I remember how to be safe. Then you'll learn. Same way you learned everything else one day at a time. She finally opened the folder. Her eyes scanned the documents. This is real, not some intelligence trap. It's real. I vouch for you personally. He met her eyes. You saved 37 lives at Darwin. You've earned a chance at a normal life. I don't know what normal looks like. Neither did I after my first deployment. Or my second. Or my 10th. Harris smiled. But you figure it out. You find small things that matter. Coffee that doesn't taste like battery acid. Books. People who know your name, your real name. Alina. She said it quietly, like she was testing forgotten syllables. My name is Alina Volkov. Nice to officially meet you, Alina. They sat in comfortable silence. Through the window, Harris could see the base's flight line helicopters taking off and landing, the routine machinery of military life. Will you tell them? Alina asked. The men at Darwin. Who I really was. They already know. Jensen found the classified files. Harris shrugged. They're calling you a legend. The ghost who saved Darwin. There's talk of a commendation. I don't want a medal. I know. But they want to give you one anyway. Recognition matters. It means what you did mattered. That you mattered. Alina touched her wrist. The small lynx tattoo visible now. This used to be a mark of shame. Proof that I was only good for killing. And now? Now. She looked up. Maybe it's just a reminder that survival is possible. That people can change. People can always change, Harris said. The hard part is believing you deserve to. Outside, the sun was setting. Inside, for the first time in years, Alina Volkov began to believe. 2 weeks later, Harris received orders to return stateside. His rotation was complete. The Pentagon wanted him for a training position at Quantico working with the same sniper program where Alina would be consulting. The day before his departure, he visited her at the rehabilitation center. She was in the physical therapy room, working through range of motion exercises with her injured arm. Looking good, he said. Liar. I look like I lost a fight with a building. The building looked worse. She laughed a real laugh, open and unexpected. It transformed her face, made her look even younger. What brings you here, Commander? 2 things. First, I wanted to say goodbye. I'm shipping out tomorrow. Goodbye implies we won't see each other again. Fair point. See you later. Then, he pulled out a small box. Second, I wanted to give you this. Alina opened it carefully. Inside was a compass, old, brass, with an engraved inscription too worn to read clearly. It was my grandfather's, Harris explained. He carried it through Vietnam, gave it to me before my first deployment. Said a good compass always brings you home. James, I can't. Yes, you can. Because I believe you're going to need it more than me. He closed her hands around the box. You've spent years being Phantom Lynx. Now you need to find out who Alina Volkov is. That's going to be harder than any mission you've ever run. What if I can't find her? What if there's nothing left except the soldier? Then you build something new. You create the person you want to be. Harris smiled. That's what I did. I was so angry after my first combat deployment. Angry at the enemy. Angry at the world. Angry at myself for surviving when good people died. My wife almost left me. What changed? I realized that surviving wasn't enough. I had to find a reason to survive. For me, it was teaching. Helping other soldiers stay alive. He gestured to her. For you, maybe it's the same thing. Maybe it's something else. But you deserve the chance to find out. Alina held the compass, turning it over in her hands. In Donetsk, When you pulled me from the rubble, you said something. Do you remember? I said a lot of things. You said, stay with me. Your story isn't finished yet. She looked up. I held on to that. Through 5 years of running, hiding, trying to figure out who I was supposed to be, your words kept me alive. And now? Now I think my story might finally have a different ending. Not the one I expected. Maybe better. Harris stood. I'll see you at Quantico in 6 weeks. Try not to terrify the trainees too much. No promises. She stood too, moving carefully. James, thank you for everything. Thank you for saving my team, for showing us what real courage looks like. They shook hands, a firm grip, soldier to soldier. But then Alina surprised him by pulling him into a brief, awkward hug. I'm not good at this, she muttered. You're doing fine. When they separated, there were tears in her eyes. I spent so long being a ghost. It's strange, being seen. Get used to it, because you're not invisible anymore. As Harris left, he looked back once. Alina stood by the window, the compass in her hand, looking out at the world like she was seeing it for the first time. Phantom Lynx had died in Donetsk, but Alina Volkov was being born here, in this moment, under the gentle sun of a peaceful afternoon. 6 months later, Marine Corps Base Quantico, Virginia. Harris stood on the observation deck overlooking the sniper range. Below, a dozen Marines in training were attempting long-range shots at targets placed between 800 and 1200 meters. The range instructor was a slight woman in civilian clothes and a baseball cap, blonde ponytail pulled through the back. She moved among the students with quiet authority, making minute corrections to their positions. Breathe through the shot, not before it, Alina Volkov said to a young corporal. The trigger pull is a surprise to your finger, not your brain. The corporal adjusted, fired. The target pinged. Better. Now do it again. Harris smiled. In 6 months, Alina had become one of the most requested instructors in the program. Her students had a 92% qualification rate, the highest in the division. But more importantly, she seemed lighter. Not happy, exactly, but less haunted. After the session ended, Alina climbed to the observation deck. Spying on me? Commander? Just checking on my investment. He'd been promoted to full commander, assigned to oversee special operations training programs. Your investment is doing well. Though I think Private Johnson might wash out. His fundamentals are good, but his heart isn't in it. Not everyone can be a sniper. No, not everyone should be. She leaned on the railing, watching the trainees pack their gear. I've been thinking about what you said, about finding who I am beyond the soldier. And I started taking classes, community college, online, just basic stuff, literature, history. She sounded almost embarrassed. I realized I never learned anything except how to shoot. That's great, Alina. It's strange. Reading about wars in books is different than fighting them. All that context I was missing. All that human cost I never considered. She paused. I'm writing too. Just journal stuff. But my therapist says it helps. You're seeing a therapist? VA recommended one. Dr. Sarah Patterson. She's good, doesn't judge, just listens. Alina smiled slightly. Turns out talking about trauma is more effective than burying it. They watched the sun sink toward the horizon, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose. I got an interesting call last week, Harris said, from a documentary filmmaker. They want to do a piece on female snipers in modern warfare. Asked if I knew anyone who might be willing to share their story. Alina tensed. I told them no. That your story is yours to tell, if and when you're ready. She relaxed. Thank you. I'm not ready for that. Maybe never will be. That's fine too. You don't owe anyone your trauma. But I do want to do something. She turned to face him. I want to help other women who are coming out of special operations. Women who have the same problems. I did not knowing how to be normal after being weaponized. That's a good idea. Have you thought about how? A support group, maybe. Or consulting with the VA on programs for female veterans. I don't know yet, but I have time to figure it out. Yes, you do. You have all the time in the world. As darkness fell, the range lights came on, casting long shadows across the empty field. Alina pulled out the brass compass Harris had given her months ago. She opened it, checked the direction. North, she said softly. What? The compass. It's pointing north, toward home. She looked up. I think I'm finally heading in the right direction. Harris put a hand on her shoulder. I think you are too. Behind them, the lights of Quantico glowed warm and steady, a beacon, a sanctuary, a place where ghosts could finally rest. 1 year later, Harris received a package at his office. No return address. Inside was a photograph, old, creased, showing a young blonde woman in tactical gear, smiling at the camera. On the back, in neat handwriting, "This is who I was trying to remember. Thank you for helping me find her. Alina." He pinned the photo to his board, next to pictures of his family, his teams, the people who mattered. 2 years after that, Alina Volkov published a book under a pseudonym, Beyond the Crosshairs, A Female Sniper's Journey Home. It became required reading at several military training programs. 3 years later, she testified before Congress about the need for better mental health support for special operations veterans. The legislation that followed was nicknamed the Lynx Act. 4 years later, she married a fellow veteran, a quiet man who worked as a carpenter and had never heard of Phantom Lynx. He knew only Alina, the woman who loved coffee and old books and Saturday mornings. 5 years after FOB Darwin, on a bright spring morning, Alina received a call. "Miss Volkov, this is Corporal Elena Martinez. You trained me at Quantico 3 years ago. I remember. How can I help you, Corporal? I'm being deployed. First combat rotation. And I'm terrified." The young woman's voice shook. "You told us once that fear is what keeps you alive. But what if the fear is too much? What if I freeze?" Alina sat down, cradling the phone. Through her window, she could see her husband building a bookshelf in the garage. A normal Tuesday in a normal life. "Fear means you understand the stakes," Alina said. "It means you respect what you're facing. Don't try to eliminate it, channel it, let it sharpen your focus. But what if I can't do this? What if I'm not strong enough?" "Elena, listen to me. Strength isn't the absence of fear. It's choosing to act despite the fear. It's doing your job even when every instinct says to run." Alina touched the compass on her desk. She kept it always. "You are strong enough. You wouldn't have made it through training if you weren't." "How do you know?" "Because I watched you. I saw you fail shots, get back up, and try again. I saw you help other trainees when you were struggling yourself. That's real strength. That's what will keep you alive." Silence. Then, "Thank you, ma'am. I needed to hear that. Call me when you get back. I want to hear how you did." "I will. And ma'am, I read your book. The one you wrote. I know who you used to be." Alina's hand tightened on the phone. "And I just want you to know," Alina continued, "you're still a hero to us. Not because you were Phantom Lynx, because you survived and came back to help people like me. That takes more courage than any shot you ever made." After they hung up, Alina sat quietly, letting the words settle. Her husband appeared in the doorway. "Everything okay?" "Yes," she smiled. "One of my former students, heading to deployment. Will she be all right?" "Yes, she will." Alina stood, walking to her husband. "Because she knows what I learned, that survival is just the beginning. What matters is what you build after." That night, lying in bed, Alina dreamed. Not of war, for once. Not of targets or missions or the weight of her rifle. She dreamed of morning coffee, of books waiting to be read, of students learning to find their way home. And in her dream, the compass always pointed north, toward light, toward life, toward everything she'd almost lost and fought so hard to reclaim. The ghost had a name now. The name was home.